Hello, Leah. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
I'm really excited to talk to you. I mean, loyalty is just such a fun topic, and you've been a part of the most marquee loyalty program. So if you're okay with it, let's jump right into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, after 20 years in corporate, I decided to venture out on my own and start Radical Loyalty. And now, a year and a half later, here we are. So, as part of Radical Loyalty, we design and redesign loyalty programs and help loyalty programs leverage their data to create better relationships with their customers, but more so with an intent to drive very specific business metrics. That could be frequency, that could be AOV, that could be margin. So, so we help leverage data to either leverage opportunities or capitalize on opportunities or solve problems. But Matthias, like you said, after 20 years in corporate, I had quite an interesting journey. I started at American Express and I just happened to dive into loyalty. It was my first job right out of undergrad.
Oh, wow.
And American Express, they hired me literally in December of my fourth year, and I still had a semester left. But American Express was a really great postgraduate education in the sense that they made us move between roles every year and a half or so. And so, because loyalty is so incredibly linked intrinsically into credit cards, particularly at American Express, I got to touch membership rewards, which is American Express's proprietary loyalty program, Air Miles, and Aeroplan, as well as a number of others. And so it was truly a great education, as well as education along the customer lifecycle. So from acquisition to early engagement, to engagement of existing customers, and profitability to then retention. So it was just a whole trial by fire experience of understanding how to drive business, how to drive emotional loyalty, and how to drive relationships. And I did my MBA part time while I was there, and afterwards, I really didn't know what I didn't know. Right. So I wasn't sure whether financial services was going to be my path forward forever. And I wanted to make myself completely uncomfortable. And I went into a very, very different business environment from American Express. I went to Home Depot. And at the time, Home Depot had a fledgling B2B loyalty program that had been launched, interestingly enough, by the finance department. And it was only around for a year. And so I took that under my wing and loved it. And RFP'd the business, brought a new vendor on board, revamped the value proposition to make it more profitable, but more importantly, started leveraging the data throughout the organization so that everybody can make better, more data-driven decisions. And then I got a call from a recruiter on behalf of Air Miles, and it was just like angels singing. It was my dream job. And but they didn't need me to start for another 3 months, so I quit my job at Home Depot and traveling around the world,
Oh, nice.
which was amazing because it was before I had kids, so I was free to do so. And then came back and started at Air Miles. I ran the account with Bank of Montreal being by far the largest at the time client of Loyalty One globally, both on a revenue and a net income perspective. And we had two of us in charge. One ran on the strategy side, one ran on the marketing side. So I ran the marketing team, helping different lines of business at BMO leverage the Air Miles currency to one, make better decisions, and two, meet their objectives. And then three, my team helped them create campaigns with the Air Miles currency through the Air Miles channels and then execute. And then after a couple of years of doing that, again, I wanted to continue filling out my skill set and rounding out my resume. So I tried my hand in content creation, B2B, and research and development. So I led a team of researchers doing primary and secondary research and then publishing content to drive B2B sales for Loyalty One Consulting and our advanced analytics team. And then somebody at the time, very senior, told me that single moms can't be consultants, which I took as as a personal challenge. And I left and I became a consultant. I joined Bond Brand Loyalty as a loyalty consulting director, consulting uh, primarily US retailers with designing or redesigning their loyalty programs. I wasn't there for a very long time, but then I left and I went to, interestingly enough, Sears Canada, and they needed more help on the CRM side of the business rather than on the loyalty. And so I took over the program on taking it from a mass program to make it much, not necessarily one-to-one personalized, but much more targeted, and then making this email channel the number one sales driver for ecom. So
Wow.
really turned that around. Had an amazing team working with me, but then Sears went under and I went down with it. I went down with the ship and landed in a company called at that time Relation One. The role was created specifically for me, which was amazing. It was a small boutique consulting firm specializing in advanced analytics, loyalty, and personalization, and I ran the Toronto consulting practice, working with really premium brands, including again Bank of Montreal, Jaguar Land Rover, Calgary Co-op, really great folks, helping them fulfill the vision of personalization. And then 2 years later, I got a call from Loblaw, and I had interviewed with them 2 years prior, and they luckily remembered me, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity. The role was right up my alley. It was taking uh, running the promotional department for BC Optimum, as well as data analytics, supporting one of the main divisions at Loblaw. And I learned a ton. It was an amazing experience. It was tough, but it was definitely well worth it. And then unfortunately, my role was eliminated, and I eventually found myself at the Bay. And the Bay was revamping its loyalty program. And I got to run both marketing and product development, so the development of the new value proposition for the loyalty program, until we had a new SVP join, and then I gave up the product part of it to him and just ran the marketing department. And then again, as part of reshuffling, things moved fairly quickly. And again, my role was eliminated, and then I decided to go out on my own, and here we are. The rest is history.
There you go.
So long journey to get here.
Well, what an interesting journey, though, right? Because it's so rooted, and there's so many aspects of loyalty embedded in your journey, which is just so interesting, especially to us, because we think that there are amazing loyalty programs out there. The American Express program's amazing. The Sephora program's amazing. The PC Optimum, like there's really strong programs, and you worked at like most of them. But we think that these really powerful loyalty programs, they shouldn't just be for the large brands that have lots of resources, right? And on the tech side, like we're getting there where we can get these brands set up and being able to offer this in a way that really fits their business. But there's learnings that you've had through your career that I think would be so helpful, because you've been at these big brands. So maybe I'll start with just kind of like maybe a more fundamental question, like knowing you've been through all this with all these companies and all these programs, what is loyalty? Like what's the fundamental like piece of loyalty, and what does doing loyalty correctly like ultimately achieve?
I really would like to disentangle the word loyalty and loyalty program, because you don't know, not everybody needs a loyalty program in order to be able to drive loyalty. Period. Full stop. So loyalty to me is an invitation to a mutually beneficial relationship in the long term. And the outcome that I like to see is a commitment from both parties to each other, i.e., like a marriage, forsaking all others, which means that it's mutually beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
And in today's world, more and more customers are becoming fickle and are not necessarily they're not necessarily dedicating all of their share of wallet with one particular provider. In fact, more often than not, they don't. And part of the reason for that is because they're not realizing enough value. And value doesn't always have to mean points or discounts or dollars. It doesn't have to be hard currency. It could be a whole host of different things. And we need to start with what's in it for the customer. Why should they pick us over and over and over again without being swayed by shiny promotions from our competitors? So that's one. And then two is continuously staying in communication. Some of the mistakes that the big brands make, which it's so much easier for the small, nimbler players to correct, is to continuously communicate and stay in touch and continue making sure that the communication focuses more on the customer and the member and not on themselves. So if I keep saying, this is my new product, this is my new product, this is my new product, that's all well and good, but that's not centered on who the member is.
So much there, right? So much good stuff. And you use a lot of like really good terms and interesting way of kind of framing this stuff. One of the things that I've heard you say is loyalty is much more than a program. Are you talking are you talking more about the emotional side when you say that?
So definitely, I'm talking about the emotional side. I speak about emotional loyalty ad nauseum, but it's also about making sure that you don't always have to have loyalty dynamics. Because the way that we think about loyalty is spend $1, you get a point. And having a formal program. There's so many other different formats that you can go to market with providing value to your customers, leveraging the data and communicating to your customers.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, I want to even just pick at that because we definitely don't see like in our experience, like points are table stakes sometimes or a lot of the times, but points are by no means are the entirety of the program, right? I mean, like when I think of a consumer brand and I think about the things it can give me, like points is really low on the list for me, at least on like what would drive that kind of emotional connection. And one of the things we get excited about is like adding things like content, adding things like invitations to events and like other things to kind of drive that emotional connection. Why do you think there's been such a tie to points? Like, do you think every program needs to have points, and is it that important part of a program or a strategy?
Points has been a very easy way for larger organizations to budget how much they spend
Mm,
on a per customer basis. And it provides a very easy lever to pull. So if I want you to come in more often, I'll give you points. If I want you to spend more, I'll give you points. So it provides a very easy mechanism to track, to measure, and to incentivize.
yeah, for sure. I would agree with all that, and therefore I think points are important in many cases. But I think
But it's not the only
it,
way.
exactly. What are things beyond points that get you kind of excited and you've seen kind of really kind of move the needle?
I'm personally a fan of what you said, which is content, and create and focusing more on solving the problem for the customers, leveraging assets that and unique assets specifically that a company has. So I'll give you hypothetical examples.
Sure.
For grocery stores, it's about understanding who you are as a chef, how proficient you are, the kind of meals you like to serve and cook, and why do you like to serve and cook? Is it a utilitarian? Is it gourmet and you're proud to partake and feed your family? So how do we talk to you in a way that resonates in terms of recipes, in terms of recommendations, in terms of saving you extra trips to make sure that you buy everything that you need? I had a client who was in the entertainment industry. So for their VIP clients, could they partition part of their parking lot to be VIP parking?
Mm,
IKEA does a tremendous job of their ball pit, where walking through an IKEA with the screaming toddlers, not the favorite thing to do in the world, but you can drop your kids off and they get to enjoy and have fun, and you get to run around and pick them up at the end. It's fun, it's unique, and it's very on brand.
I mean, this is why we're so excited about what we're doing because I think that every brand has a different relationship with every customer, and there are things that that brand can offer the customer that are similar to what others are offering, so points and things like that. But there's also things that are unique to that one brand, and only that brand can offer it. And I think the secret and like the art and the exciting thing to do here is to be able to like use those levers that others don't have because of who you are. And I
Yep.
think on the technology side, like we're getting there in terms of like making this stuff easy to do. So I'm just really excited to see all these use cases come to life. I mean, like,
Embrace
right?
your weird.
Embrace your weird, right?
Embrace your weird. Nike does a terrific job because Nike creates its Nike Training Club app, and I talk about it so much. And it's never about Nike shoes. It's always about what are your fitness goals? What have you achieved this week? Let us celebrate your milestones. Let us create a personalized training plan for you, and let us connect you with the content and the coaching to help you get to the next level. It's about you. It's at your convenience and at your request to engage. And it's never about them. And at
And
the same time, the wealth of data that they collect is tremendous because it's not about the purchase, it's about the product usage. They know how you exercise, when you exercise, what you're into. So when they turn around and say, "Hey, Matthias, this is the shoe that we recommend based on how you use the product," it comes from a very trusted
yes,
source rather than just here's our shoe.
I mean, it seems, I don't want to say obvious, but it seems obvious that these things are a great strategy. Do you think it's the reason why it hasn't been more prolific and more people doing this is because it's been hard? Like historically, it's been hard to get the data. It's been hard to offer the type of benefits. Do you think that's the reason, or do you think there's another reason why it hasn't been as kind of widely used, like
It's
these type of
hard.
strategies?
It's hard to prove ROI on one hand,
Okay.
and on the other hand, for retailers that are not vertically integrated, they have merchants and they have vendors. And the vendors are used to a certain model that is run by ROI, CPM, etc. And so when I have a specific campaign and promotion, it is very easy for me to show how I drive value. In the short term,
Hmm.
the Nikes of the world, the way that they go to market, it is much more long term to measure and to prove exactly the tie-in it has to revenue. So with that, it becomes it, the C-suite as well as the partners and external stakeholders have to be bought in to trying and testing and learning and having a longer term horizon to be able to measure.
Hmm. I think also like to not advocate like responsibility. I think the tech platforms have a lot they can do here, right? I think that the more we can tie a new member became a customer and then like the LTV on that customer is higher generally, and like these types of more kind of softer and also qualitative metrics, I think can really help if they're
Yes.
organized well. And I also agree with you that I think if you're a brand that's only using Shopify, it's a lot easier to say, okay, well, Leah came in January, she became a member of the loyalty program, then she spent in March, and then she spent again here, compared to somebody else who just purchased. I think it gets easier that way too. But it's yeah, I think that as the technology gets easier, as collecting data becomes more like also easier, I think that it will lead us to a world where every more brands have either formal or non-formal loyalty programs, and those programs will embrace their weird, right? Like they'll each be unique in their own special way. And I think that's a really exciting future. What do you think of that? Would you agree with any of that or all of that?
I do. I do. There's one caveat though. The caveat is if you need to measure on a per customer basis. So if you're looking at Leah's profile and you're seeing me grow over time, then it becomes easy to prove the value. If you're looking at an aggregate, that may or may not get masked.
Mm,
So the technology absolutely exists. It's about the desire and measuring the right things to be able to prove the worth and the value.
totally, totally, 100% agree with that. You know, one of the things that you talk a lot about, and I think this is a good kind of tie-in, because I think that this is a good use case for the technology. I think AI will play a big role here. Like I do think that, you know, the things AI is actually good for today and will be good for in the future, I think can be well leveraged here. So just curious on, and I know you talk a lot about it. When you talk about AI, is this kind of like what you're leaning into, or is there more to it as well?
AI is table stakes. In order to be able to do personalization at scale, you need AI and you need machine learning. That goes without saying. And you absolutely need personalization. That is also quickly becoming table stakes. Having said that, personalization is currently not being done well and not being experienced by the customer well. So there's still this huge gap that we need to fill. And part of that is not in technology, part of it is in the business end of things, defining what personalization means to the business and how it drives the right kind of behavior. Full stop. AI is a tool. It's a matter of how you use it and what you use it for, and whether you do it in a smart way. I always like this quote: a fool with a tool is still a fool.
It's a great quote.
So if you deploy AI in not the best way, it becomes garbage in, garbage out.
Totally. So let me ask you this question. So imagine it's 10 years from now. Imagine you're a really exciting retailer. You're selling maybe like a line of clothing that's really popular. Now, imagine you have a really great loyalty program, and that program is run by not a fool with a tool. And what does that look like? In the best scenario, what would that look like to you?
In the best case scenario, I have an emotional relationship. My clothing line is not only stands for something. It's not just a dress. It's not just a pair of shoes. There's a reason behind it. And both myself and my customers stand behind that reason. And that's why we're in it to win it. And I understand who my best customers are, why they shop. I understand who my next best are, and I have means to continue to migrate them up to become my best customers, which means that I track the right kind of metrics and the right kind of behavior to get them to where they're committed to me. But at the same time, I show value and commitment back to them. And there's no reason for them to go outside and seek anyone else, which means that they always start their shop with me. And I provide recommendations and personalized tools to help them look and feel their best for whatever. And I understand their lives. I understand how my products fit into their lives, the role that they play. And I also have a ton of data in terms of what do they do and how they use my product and what's coming up in their life. Do they have a wedding? Are they going back to work after maternity leave? Is this meant to be for loungewear, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
You know, it gets me so excited to even hear this because I agree with everything you said there, and I too envision that future, right? I mean, why I get specifically though excited about it is there's no missing like R&D really that needs to happen to bring that to life, right? Like there's no like, oh, if only we had this one breakthrough, then that would be possible. Like all these things exist, the ability to do all these things exists, and we're, I think, doing a good job putting a lot of that together. But I just love that this exciting future that you're portraying, like the pieces exist. I mean, we just got to make sure they get put in the right way and into the oven.
You know what blows my mind is that we're still not doing anything in terms of personalization that the customer expects. We have the data, we have the know-how, we have the technology, we have the business case. What's getting in our way?
Well, and that's why, like, it's like I like to take the responsibility. It's like I think the tech platforms, I think we can get people there. I think the same way Shopify kind of like bridged it on the e-commerce side. I think someone can bridge it, and I think you go to conferences, and for the past forever period of time at conferences, they've been talking about personalization and personalized loyalty and emotional connections and these things, right? So the rubber's at the road here, where it's like let's actually do these things. So I think, and by the way, I also think some brands have already done a lot of this stuff, and
Yes,
you
for
worked
sure.
at a bunch of them, right?
For
So
sure.
I just think they're big and it takes a lot of resources. Maybe to that end, are there any examples of like really great programs today that I know you mentioned Nike, but are there others that kind of come to your mind?
In terms of
Like just
who's doing a
they're
good
doing
job.
a great job. Like the program that they're running today looks like the program that a lot of people will have in the future.
Yeah, Sephora is always gold star in terms of what they value. They understand that loyalty is not just about the points and about the tiers, although that is a very important component to their program, as are their product samples, which is something that you can redeem for. People are all gung ho, and the beautiful thing about those samples is that they're all vendor funded, which means that they're
Yeah,
no cost on Sephora, which
crazy.
from an ROI perspective, you can't get better than free. But what Sephora does is they understand the human and emotional component, which is based on four motivational drivers. It's the bonding and connecting. We are social animals. We want to come together. We don't want to be isolated. And they have amazing events that they hold specifically for their members, whether it be advanced sales, preview of their new products, or uh, Black Velvet Robe sales specifically for their VIP and VIP and Rouge members after hours. So that's one. And then two, they have an outstanding platform for their community where people like yours truly that are not in the industry can come in and ask questions like how do I contour a face, and another potentially amateur or professional can create a whole video of which products they would recommend, how they would apply, all the techniques. So completely user generated. They would post in reply. So now I'm connected to someone I never met before, and we're co-creating together something that is absolutely brand new that is helping her potentially be a creator of content and me learn how to be a better, more presentable Leah.
Love it. And I've a lot of people talk about the Starbucks program and they talk about other. I think the best loyalty, and I'm not even a member, right? I think the best loyalty program out there today is the Sephora program. I think that they have absolutely got it right.
Killing it.
And right when it comes to like loyalty programs, I think Sephora has done such a great job. And then I also think like on the technology side, like Shopify has done a great job with e-commerce. And why like I get excited to go to work every day is because what if the Shopify equivalent technology platform enabled people to have a loyalty program like the Sephora one, which is what gets us kind of really excited. But yeah, I think Sephora's done a really good job. And yeah, I guess are there any others? It's hard to top
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
I would check out REI's program.
yeah,
Our, because REI very heavily leans into ESG, which is so core to their brand, and then they translate that into their program. In general, the best practices in loyalty programs that it has to be on brand. When the customer expectation of your brand is the same as the customer experience of your program, it's beautiful. The other one is Walgreens. So we in Canada obviously don't have Walgreens. It's a US pharmacy, but they have a co-branded credit card. And what they do is they give a multiplier on healthy living.
mm,
Because health and wellness is a very core component of Walgreens as a brand, because again, it's a pharmacy, they give triple the cash back on getting your vaccines, quitting smoking, walking miles, buying healthy food products, spend at your doctors, spend at your veterinarians, spending at your optometrists and your dentist. So making sure that your massages, etc. So they make sure that they incentivize, and there's no direct tie into Walgreens' bottom line on that, but it's the right thing for the customer and it's the right thing from a brand point of view.
I mean the numbers fall into place when you do it like that, right? And
And they may charge a different interchange fee to those providers, perhaps, but the way that it comes through and comes across to the customer is brilliant.
Totally. Okay, well, just in kind of, this has been so good. I could talk to you about loyalty, and I mean, you're just a wealth of knowledge. But if you can imagine an emerging, exciting brand wanting to have what REI has, wanting to have what Sephora has, and the technology available, but also, it's hard to do what the big companies do because it takes time, resources, thought. Like what would be, rather than boiling the ocean, what would be kind of some tips, tricks, some like must have like ideas and concepts you would empower one of these brands with? Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
you absolutely don't need to boil the ocean. You can keep it fairly tight and small. I would say one, lean into your weird. What's cool, new, interesting about you? What would be on brand for you? Two, start with the value for the customer. And value, like we talked about, does not have to be cash, does not have to be discount, does not have to be points. It could be about time savings. It could be about access. It could be about opportunity. It could be about self-actualization. It could be about teaching and content. It could be a wealth of different things. It's about what your customer finds valuable. And then communicate about them and not about you.
It's great, great, great tips. And I love that because if you just do that, you don't get far from one of these A-class loyalty programs.
That's it.
And,
And you
and
can start small. It doesn't
right?
have to be. And the lovely thing is that for the smaller players, they're much more nimble. They're not turning around a giant legacy system or a big bureaucratic ship of stakeholders. They can test and pilot and learn and innovate and iterate.
Well, in many ways, it's easier, right? Because the data
So
is
much
easier to
easier.
get. It's like less tools. It's great. Well, Leah, thank you so much. I mean, I love these conversations. I learned a lot, and I love, I think we should all take your advice here and lean into the weird, even personally. I think it's just such a great saying. So thank you so much for being on, Leah.
Thank you so much for having me. I'd love to be on again. You've had me.
Oh, absolutely. And Leah, I know that a lot of people will be wondering where can we find Leah. So yeah, any plug for where folks can find you?
Please. So you can find me at L Grimberg, Grimberg at radicleloyalty.com. And radical is spelled Radicle, because radical, not like radical, but this particular radical is actually a botanical term. It
Oh
means
wow.
the root of a plant, which is
And
where the definition came from. Is we look at your data as the root of all knowledge.
and that reach out works for big brands but small brands as well. Is that right?
100%.
Awesome. Leah, thank you so much.
Thank you.